So you were saying what? What? Our paths have crossed.
No, well, I mean, I've been doing radio and media for, gosh, 25 years at least, probably a little more. And
Uh-huh.
I know I've been on something you've done before, but I also know that you, I don't even know if you know that I was involved with this movie, Skin, A History of Nudity in the Movies, as an executive producer. And you guys were nice enough to nominate it for Best Movie About Movies at your film fest.
Yes, we did for Award This, which is our annual event where we, honor truly independent films. The ones that the
Yes,
Spirit Awards tend to forget. But
right.
so that's first of all, I wish you were at the awards.
Yeah, I'm in Chicago. I know you know Paul and Danny that
Of course,
are my partners on this, and they were there. And I wish I could, but I do appreciate you considering the movie. We had a lot of fun putting it together.
Well, that movie is, just for anyone, if you're a film student, if you're a scholar of film history, that documentary is fantastic. It could have been a documentary series. There's so much detailed information about how nudity was perceived, how different, rating systems were put into place. It's a great doc, and you get some really great gets too. Malcolm McDowell is in it.
Yes,
some really good interviews and just fascinating about how nudity was perceived and how it's evolved through the ages too. I think we're, as much as like adult content is available online in a plentiful way, I still think Americans at least are very puritanical when it comes to nudity. Like, what is this strange? That's the thing. And first of all, I must say, I normally save this for people who serve in our military, but I have to say thank you for your service, because what you do with Mr. Skin. I've listened to you for years on Howard Stern. Your appearances on Howard Stern are amazing. And then additionally, the Skinatomy Awards. You created
Howard,
your own event.
It's funny because Howard calls them the Skinatomy Awards. They're the Anatomy Awards.
The Anatomy Awards.
Yeah.
Oh.
But no, so many people say Skinatomy because Howard always screws it up and goes, "We have Mr. Skin on today with his Skinatomy Awards." So that's how people know it. It's totally fine.
That's funny. Well, but can you tell me about this? How you see this? Like, adult content is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's plentiful. It's also available at mrskin.com at reasonable prices. But additionally, like, we also live in a time where people are so puritanical, especially on social media. So I see this strange, like these things, how do these things match up, and why in the United States do we seem to be becoming even more puritanical about when it comes to nudity?
Yeah, I think social media has played a part. What's interesting about this documentary, before you even get into that, is if in watching it, what I think people would, and by the way, this is free at Hulu right now. If you want to see it, you could go to Amazon or any place you download movies to watch the documentary. But I think what people would find most fascinating, even people that think they know a lot about movies, how much sex and nudity there was before the Hays Code in 1934.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stuff that was going on in the teens and 20s, it blows your mind. Like, you're like, wait a second. We're so used to seeing old movies from the 30s, 40s, or 50s with nothing. And it was, we were on a path to a lifetime of incredible nudity, Wizard of Oz with nudity or something. But it just got, sabotaged by the Hays Code and what happened with the Catholic League of Decency, and complete shutdown of anything sexy or sexual, or, and it's too bad because we had a gap of about 30 years where there was no nudity until the 60s. And then it seemed so silly to have movies without sex and nudity with, everything that was going on in the 60s. So anyway, yes, but we still were always like 10 years behind Europe, right? Because, all those movies in the 50s where, American men would go to art house theaters to see Brigitte Bardot and Sophia Loren, and those movies because they had sex and nudity, not because they were these voracious film buffs, happened in the 50s, 10 years before we started to see nudity in our films here in the United States.
Yeah, it's just really strange that, you know, there's still this kind of battle between, you know, our desire to see, you know, nudity in films done correctly, I think. You know, I would reference Phoebe Cates in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. That's
favorite nude scene of all time.
I mean, that has to be probably, I mean, like that's like a seminal moment. It's a milestone. I believe that the movie Last Tango in Paris, 1972, Marlon Brando, I mean, that was also, you know, something that's another milestone.
Those are iconic nude scenes. Listen, those are some of the most famous nudity in the world is Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Last Tango in Paris with Maria Schneider. So yeah, and I there's just certain nude scenes, Sharon Stone and Basic Instinct, where you bring up the movie and our minds all go to those. You know, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, we think of Phoebe Cates. Last Tango in Paris, we think of the butter scene.
Right.
You know, Basic Instinct, we don't necessarily thinking about the movie so much as the leg cross scene. So those are like iconic, some of the most famous nude scenes in the history of movies.
And what the documentary does is it really sort of lays out, and it's all the way that the doc is done is very, I don't want to say, I mean, it is in a way kind of clinical. It's a historical telling of like a lot of how, you know, laws came into play and film distribution affected things, and theatrical. It's weird how the initial X rating was, you know, X rating was something that the MPAA put out, and then it was co-opted by the adult industry into, well, this isn't just X, now it's triple X.
Right. It was never trademarked either, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's weird. And then when you look back at like how even people's tastes have changed, where a film that was rated R in the 70s would, I mean, it just seems silly, right? Like, but do you have, I'm sure you have insight into why there is this strange duality with Americans in particular, when it comes to nudity in films. And I want to go full screen on you for a second, because I want people who are watching this, if you're listening to it, just look up Skin, A History of Nudity, the movies. It's streaming on Hulu currently, but I want people to be able to see that glorious poster. That is a great poster. But I want to get your thoughts on this topic, the duality of the American public and how they consume media. I'm just fascinated by that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, remember, like, we talk a lot about how a movie, think about all the movies in the 80s and 90s that had tons of violence, but they'd be like PG-13 or PG. But if someone showed a breast, they'd be rated R. So it's like, why is that, you know? And you go to Europe, I remember in the 80s or 90s, if you ever had a chance to go to Europe, you know, before the internet and everything, and you'd be watching television, and just in their commercials on, you know, in the middle of the day, there'd be nudity, and it'd be like, you know, it was so foreign, no pun intended, to us. And it's just a different culture. We are definitely uptight about nudity, not uptight about violence, but we are uptight about nudity, and it's uniquely American. Well, there's other countries that are similar, but it's something that's uniquely American.
Well, I would say Canadians are probably more prudish.
Possibly, yeah.
In my experience, but I think it's maybe more of a behind closed doors. Americans want to have their access to nudity.
Listen, behind closed doors. I remember, you know, I've been running Mr. Skin for almost 22 years, and like, you go look at these, you know, what were the websites that get the most traffic are the tube sites, right? The porn, all those porn sites, the tube sites are like some of the most trafficked websites on the internet. It's like, who are you kidding? People love sex, and it's never going to change. It's always going to be popular. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I agree. It's like something you can't. I mean, that's never going to stop. But what's really fascinating to me is how mainstream Hollywood it used to be. I mean, I remember, I think the teen sort of sex comedy, that's a dead genre right now. That is a dead genre. I mean, I saw probably one of the coolest raunchy comedies I've seen recently. I think you would really like this movie, Donnie's Bar Mitzvah.
Oh yeah.
Add that to your, I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, no, I know of it. Yeah, I haven't watched it, but I know about it.
Okay. Hilarious, raunchy comedy like would have been made in the 80s, and it exists today. I'm surprised that you know, the mob isn't coming after this filmmaker, because there's so many things in it that are politically incorrect, but it fits that genre. It's really a hysterical comedy.
Yeah. What was interesting?
Why are these movies not made today? Why are these movies?
I know. Well, we've gone through like the golden age of the teen sex comedy was definitely like 1980 to 1985. We had Fast Times and Porky's and Last American Virgin, and we could go on and on. You know all those movies.
Yeah.
Then the John Hughes movies became popular, and those were PG movies, right? There were no nudity in those, very, very occasionally, but not mostly they were not nude. But then American Pie came out in '99, and that was like kind of like harken back to that glory day of 80 to 85. But as far as teen sex comedies, it's just, you know, it's just for high school, even if you're in your 20s as an actor or actress, it's rough to try to get things out there where you're showing kids that are in high school having sex, even if they're not really in high school, you know? And it just wasn't that way in the 80s when those great teen sex comedies were made.
Well, I mean, they didn't take themselves too seriously. And truth be told, if you go back and watch the original Porky's, I mean, that movie, yes, it is what it is. Teen sex comedy, but it actually deals with social issues in that, you know, anti-Semitism and whatnot is dealt with in a very respectful way. It's dealt with some sensitivity, and that's sort of woven into like the sort of messaging underneath the surface of, okay, go see this teen sex comedy, but oh, by the way, here's a message about anti-Semitism. And everyone forgets that about Porky's, oddly enough.
They remember the group shower scene, of course.
Right, that's the thing. Well, very memorable, but
and the greatest group shower scene in the history of movies.
See, that's what I love about you. When I hear you talk on Stern, you have this encyclopedic knowledge, and not only that, you've created like your own language about how to describe these things that there's technical terms,
here's the thing about that is, number one, since as a kid I naturally have a punny sense of humor, right? Some might call it dad's sense of humor these days as you get older, but I was always in the puns. I just thought they're hilarious. But I also thought when I started MrSkin.com that we were going to be chronicling every nude scene in the history of movies and television was my goal at the time, and still is pretty much. But I remember thinking it's got to be funny. Like, I was inspired by Celebrity Skin magazine and Celebrity Sleuth magazine from the 80s and 90s that you would buy in the dirty magazine section of the newsstand. And what they both did so well, and by the way, I've become good friends with the owner of Celebrity Sleuth, who actually was in this movie as a talking head, Barry Kemmelhor, great guy, and very knowledgeable. I just knew instinctively, and also from being a fan of those publications, that when I started MrSkin.com in 1999, it had to be funny, along with skimformational, and also with with all the content, because you couldn't just sit there and go, she shows her breasts, she shows her butt, she shows her breasts, she shows her butt. So when Reese Witherspoon does a nude scene in Twilight, we see Reese's pieces. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to have fun with it, because people want to be entertained and look at nudity, and you can't don't make it boring, was my thing. And we've always kept to that, and the website is humorous and informational and obviously sexy with all the nude scenes.
Well, no, I mean, I love how you even just wove in skin formation, right? Like it's sort of like it's in your DNA.
It's in my. I can't help it. It's my
right,
whole life.
right.
Yeah.
The Anatomy Awards, which when Howard has you on and you reveal the Anatomy Award winners, always entertained by that. What is the thinking that goes into that, and is it becoming more difficult these days to discover nominees? I mean, I will say this, as I think theatrical film has less nudity in it, just truthfully, like across the board. The teen sex,
yeah, because there's more of those Hollywood blockbuster type movies and less of those, like, you know, art movies could be argued. But here's the thing. Okay, I always tell people we're in the golden age of celebrity nudity, and the reason is because of television. Because it is like, listen, there may be less movies, there may be less risk in movies, there may be less sex and nudity in movies, especially in the stuff you see in theater. There's no question about that. Independent, yeah, there's still nudity, but theaters, not as much nudity, no question. But with all the different platforms like Hulu and Netflix and Amazon and streaming service this and BET Plus, and I mean, everyone has some place that you could see PG and R-rated stuff now. And the quality of the television is so good. It's like you're watching a movie. Let's face it. You telling me when you watched an hour and 20-minute episode of Game of Thrones, you felt like you were watching a movie. It was that good. And it, you know, there's so many different places now to have these actors and actresses do nudity, way more than in 1999 when I started Mr. Skin, and way more than in the 80s or 90s when it was in theaters, because you had zero television nudity back then. So we are in the golden age of celebrity nudity. We just harken back to the good old days of teen sex comedies and drive-in movies and blaxploitation films and all that. But the reality is the television has just made it a great time to be a fan of nudity in film.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's precisely where it's migrated. Let's talk about some upcoming films that are coming out. There's Black Widow with Scarlett Johansson, and Scarlett Johansson was in a film that I know you must know.
Mm-hmm.
It's called what? Under the Skin, right?
Yeah, it came out in 2014, and there's a scene where she stands completely nude, looking at herself in the mirror. So it's the beauty of it. Number one, it's Scarlett Johansson. Number two, you get full frontal and full backle at the same time because she's looking at a mirror, which makes it a great scene. And it's the go-to nude scene for Scarlett Johansson, no question about it.
Well, it's I just find it amazing that, like, you're able to like, a big movie comes out with an actor, they're pushing for Oscars or it's a big blockbuster, and at some point in that actor's career, in their past, they have had moments. It's mostly independent films or television. And Scarlett Johansson, I saw that Under the Skin in the theater. I thought
you did?
Yeah. No, it is it's like a weird science.
I know. That's one of the great reasons that MrSkin.com exists, is the fact that listen, we can't all not every movie is like great to sit through, but every nude scene pretty much is. So you know, and we and you're right. I should bring this up too. I have this rule with British actresses where I say, like, whenever someone becomes famous and they're British, they always have a nude scene in their history. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just like a British thing. And I think we're finding more and more where American actresses, if they've had a long enough career, that somewhere in their past they've done a nude scene that before they were famous. I know that, like, one great example is at our website recently. Leslie Bibb is really popular. She's actually was #1 most searched at our website last week. And you think, why the heck is Leslie Bibb, out of 32,000 actresses, the most searched? But there's that Jupiter's Legacy, which is the Netflix, like, comic book show, and she's one of the stars of it. And lo and behold, she did a Amazon pilot called Salem Rogers, in which she walks nude on a catwalk, and people wanted to see that. And it's pretty cool. Like you're right. There's always something in someone's career. It's very rare that an actor or an actress hasn't done a nude scene at some point.
Well, there's you notice those trends. I mean, you definitely spot the trends. And one of the trends is British actresses tend to always have something in their past. They come to some level of prominence where the general public's more aware of them, and then they've done something. Are there other trends that you've noticed with actors and actresses where they have something that they've done, or a film that it's weird because I do think that like nudity has more of a stigma now than it used to. Like I think in the 70s, people really didn't. It was
well, here's the difference. In the 70s, like Linda Carter did a movie called Bobby Joe and the Outlaw in 1976, in which she does 4 nude scenes in the first like 33 minutes of the film, capped off by a moment where she's going skinny dipping while doing mushrooms with an Indian chief, which is amazing. This is Linda Carter, the actual Wonder Woman, who then a year later would become popular in the television show Wonder Woman. But when she did that movie, cable TV didn't exist. The internet didn't exist. She probably thought, I'll do this. It'll never be seen again. You know, I'll make some money. Now, it's different because it's just, once it's out there, everyone knows it's going to be out there. And back then, I think actors or actresses didn't anticipate that we'd still be talking about that movie because of the nude scene and because you could see that nude scene from 1976.
Are there actors, people that you would consider like the great white whale? Right. This is like,
yeah,
like ones where they have never done anything and may never.
Yeah,
and
I have. Oh,
what's that?
I could go like modern day, like modern day would be like Christina Hendricks, Joni from Mad Men. I always wish she would do a nude scene. That would be great. Mila Kunis is another one that I know so many people are fans of, and they may say, "Oh, wait, I've seen her in different things." Forgetting Sarah Marshall, everything she's done has either been a body double or Photoshop. She's never done a real nude scene. My historic one that I always wish did a nude scene is Raquel Welch. Like, how did she not get away from the era? She was like late 60s, 70s. Like, how the heck did she get away? And she was in bikinis all the time and having sex with Jim Brown. And, you know, it's like, how did she get away with not doing a nude scene? It's pretty incredible.
It's also what I love about your site is you keep track of data. I'm not sure how much of this you have top of mind, you know, data that you keep track of. I love that. Like, I forget which one of the tubes releases their data about like what porn terms are most searched by state.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you
well,
seen
we
that?
did, yeah, we have a ton of data. And one of the things, like at the end of last year, that surprised the heck out of me was like people searched our web. Like, we know based on the state you live in what actresses are most searched from different states. And, you know, Scarlett Johansson, Mila Kunis, you know, the big names are a bunch of different states. But then you had like, I can't remember, it was like Mississippi or somewhere. Like Dolly Parton was the number one in 2020. She's 75 years old, you know. She was the number one most searched actress at our website. Now, she was in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, and I will say that 1983 movie with Burt Reynolds, I'll say that to see her in a bustier is pretty worth it, even though it's not nude. But it's pretty funny to see different areas of the country what are the most popular and most searched actresses. It's pretty wild, and we have a lot of that data.
Yeah, I've seen data like that. I have a friend who's a comedian, Yoshi Obayashi, and he used to work in the adult world, and he'll feed me like the most interesting, bizarre facts about search terms by state and whatnot. And it really gives you a picture of like what people are really thinking across the United States, and they are thinking about nudity.
Yeah, you know, it's weird too. Like, and I'll tell you, people are creepy as all, you know, like when we used to like look at like the what people would come to search, because you could search. We've set up our website, so yeah, you could search actress or movie or television show, but also you could search like skinny dipping, or you could search red balloon and find every nude scene that had a red balloon in it, like, because we've tagged everything, right? But there's some weird fetishes like when people search, and it's like, it freaks you out, like, where you actually have like a large number of people that would search these different types of terms, and it's pretty crazy. I guess it's just the way the world is,
Yeah, well, that's what I love about your site. It is, I mean, you have tagged things in a way where almost everything is possible to search. What are some of the most obscure terms? Because when I hear you on Howard, you'll mention some of these. You have such a great language almost that you've created internally at your company in order to tag content where almost the most obscure thing that you would not even think to search for is searchable. I'm just curious as some of those terms.
Oh, you name it. Literally, I could, like, if I searched monkey, you could immediately pull up every scene in the history of movies where there's nudity and a monkey in the scene. Stuff you'd never, like, obscure, crazy stuff. Because keep in mind, we've entered into our database since 1999 every movie and television show that we've found that has nudity, right? But then I had the genius idea about 7-8 years ago, maybe a little longer, I can't remember, but it took a year or two, where I had these summer interns that we paid them like $10 an hour, and they went through every picture and video clip in the website. And if they saw, like I said, a balcony, like someone was on a balcony, they'd type in balcony. If someone had a red ribbon in their hair, they'd type, have a red ribbon. If someone was drinking scotch, anything. So then once that piece of media is tagged, now you could search it and pull it up. And, it's pretty, if you want to, like, let's say you think it's sexy when a girl is wearing glasses, you could search nude with glasses and immediately pull up every scene where a girl is nude with glasses or smoking a cigarette, or, like I mentioned, the red balloon. Like, who knows? I mean, whatever you're into, we've done the work to make your trip more pleasurable, if you will.
Well, you hit on mine. Glasses is I like a glass.
I think we did a playlist called Four-Eyed Foxes for that one. So.
Four-Eyed Foxes.
Yeah.
Do people in the industry approach you? I'm talking about Hollywood. They come and approach you because you are, I mean, legit, as much as you have a great sense of humor about all of this, which I think makes your work, just so much more pleasurable to enjoy. But it's like, but you legit have, I mean, and as executive producer of Skin, A History of Nudity in the Movies, you really have this encyclopedic knowledge just top of mind, like, boom, you're like the guy that can, quote the stats of MLB players, like,
yeah,
you got them like right in your head. So what are your thoughts on you've seen so much of the industry change. You built this website database since 1999, you're doing God's work when it comes to nudity. But what are some of the things, like, you're aspiring, like, that's an amazing project. Like, I can look up balcony and it's like every nude scene at a balcony, or whatnot. But what are some of, like, your aspirations? Like, if I had the budget for this, like, I would do this or whatnot. And I do think there's, I mean, look, your site is widely known in the industry. Like, people, like, everybody, I mean, it's like the preeminent, you have no competitors.
Well, I would argue that the whole internet's a competitor. I mean, here's the thing. Let me touch on that because it's an important thing. Is you're right. Is there any website that's as thorough as ours on this topic? No, there is not. That also includes the clips and pics and reviews and ratings and the playlists and all the bells and whistles we have on Mr. Skin. But I always get the question, especially over the last 10 years, I get it all the time. Like, why would people pay money to be a member of MrSkin.com when you could find this stuff for free on the internet? And I think the answer is because of the level of expertise that we give. Like, and keep in mind, yeah, you could find, a great scene with a monkey at one place, and you could find a teen sex comedy that you're into in another place. But for, a small fee, and our rates change all the time. We're always giving deals, but let's say you're paying $9 a month. It's a one-stop shop where you get all our expertise, all of our the way we curate content and bring it out on a daily basis from the history of movies and television. And it's, like I said, a one-stop shop. So to some people, not everyone, I get it. To some people, there's a value in that. And they don't have to worry about going anywhere else, 20 different places to find things. And that's why we exist. And also, when you come to our website, you realize that there's a lot of passion. There's a lot of expertise. There is a lot that goes into our website. And all of that is good reason for someone, to pay money either as a monthly member or a yearly member or even a lifetime member.
Well, I mean, also one of the advantages is, your search history isn't saved in Google, right?
No,
save your search history on Mr. Skin. It's the safe place to save your.
Exactly.
One thing that's concerning to me is just this creeping censorship that's happening on so many levels. And, in particular places like streaming services, my concern is now, as companies have announced that, some companies have announced that post 2024, they will no longer produce physical media. Right? Companies like Warner Brothers won't be doing DVDs. Everything's only on streaming. And what that does is it affords the streaming services the opportunity to alter their movies or add warnings, trigger warnings at the beginning.
Yeah.
Disney Plus comes to mind, where they've added warnings to films where it's just like, look, you're watching Peter Pan.
I know.
It's a kid like that. I find what's frightening about it is you can change films and not know that movie was altered. And I do believe, I know that already, having gone to, I haven't gone in almost 18 months, but conventions, comic conventions, there are VHS services where, you can trade films and DVDs. Like, I'm talking about VHS, like, because a lot of things did not make it from VHS to standard def DVD, and a lot of films didn't make it from standard def DVD now to Blu-ray. There's
tons.
Libraries of movies that have, I have a movie on VHS called Vasectomy, A Delicate Matter, starring Paul Sorvino.
Wow.
I'm not sure if there's nudity in it. I don't have a VHS player, but there are VHS trading clubs. They're on Facebook. They're on this is a growing thing because of the streaming services now have the ability to change a film after it has been released on a streaming service. And I find that there's something about that just doesn't sit well with me. I know that people's tastes have changed. I know, people's sensitivities to things have changed. I think a lot of that is positive. We should be more sensitive. Jokes that landed in the 70s don't land now. I get that. But to erase the past doesn't, I don't agree with that. And I think there's sort of a blanket warning that if I'm pressing play on a piece of content, I'm owning I have accountability for my own feelings about how I react to that. But
and you want to see the way the people that did the movie, you want to see what they intended you to see, not what a streaming service decides is okay for you to see.
Exactly. I want to hear your thoughts on that. And while you talk, I'm actually going to go find that VHS tape. I'll be right back. Okay. I'm going to remove, because I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. And listen, you explained it well. There's not much I could even say. I'm with you. Once, a movie from the 70s, go watch Billy Jack today and try to get that movie made today, and I'm not saying it should be made today, but I'm definitely with you in that if I want to watch the movie Billy Jack today, I should be able to without anything being cut out of that or changed because I'm watching it on a streaming service. I'm with you 100%.
I agree. I just think there's got to be a blanket, like it should be in the terms of service when you sign up for a streaming service, right? Like you are accountable for your own feelings about a piece of content. I'm here. I've got the movie right here. I'm going to go full screen for a second so you can see it. Check that out.
Those old cases and stuff.
Have you ever even heard of this film?
I mean, no, it hasn't. Namely because there's no nudity, but I mean, it's also because it's lost to history, right?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of films like that, and that's what's concerning to me is like as we move forward and big tech has more and more of a hold on our lives, and everything's going to streaming, and and so much of whether it's content or information is vetted and algorithms are messed with that can influence us. I fear for the history of I fear for nudity going forward. I think as we become more puritanical, do you have those concerns, or do you just think that it's like, hey, the new Game of Thrones series, don't worry, it's coming, and there'll be, I mean, it's almost like an expectation, I guess, but
yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Listen, my thoughts are that, to differentiate yourself with all the competition and content out there, that you need to make it sexy in some cases. Some cases may be more violent, but I think that there's just too many platforms and too many different different types of content. And like I said, to differentiate yourself, I always say to my friends, like, if you had two shows that were both critically acclaimed, fantastic shows, and you had a choice, you can only watch so much stuff, but one has a lot of sex and nudity, the other doesn't, but they're both equally good, equally reviewed. Which are you going to choose? You're going to choose the one with the sex and nudity every time. And I think that because, listen, if it was the old days with ABC, NBC, and CBS and just movies and theaters, maybe, but I think there's just too many platforms now for that to be a problem. But maybe I'm wrong. But I just think I don't see it slowing down, to be honest. In fact, I see more and more stuff on television that is like, holy shit, it's like NC-17 on TV, So I don't know, maybe you're looking at it from a different perspective and your concerns are warranted, but I just feel like, man, everything I see, everyone's trying to throw some sex and nudity in to get eyeballs on the show,
Right.
I don't know if water cooler talk exists anymore, but if there's a good nude scene in something, it's going to get around somehow, right?
Maybe it's a Zoomer cooler talk on
Zoomer cooler.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to say on the Disney Plus thing is irritating to me, because the assumption is that people are stupid, and I agree with you 100%. Yeah,
like, just because you don't need someone in advance to tell you that. Like Sleeping Beauty, be warned, a man kisses a woman without her consent. All right, I think we can handle it. Yeah.
That Walt Disney famously, you probably already know about this, he would sneak in butts in the early cartoons.
Yeah.
In Bambi, in Pinocchio, in almost all the Snow White, and all the early Disney films, he had butts. Now, they were cute butts, like animal butts, but the reason he put butts in the films was because he noticed when he had his short films, whenever there was a cartoon animal butt, it would make little kids, and I'm talking like single digit age, like 3, 4, 5, would always giggle and laugh, and it would get their audience to laugh. So he snuck in. I mean, you can look this up on the internet. Walt Disney butts, and that is a thing that was pointed out to me by animators. It's something that's known among animators, like, oh yeah, Walt Disney was obsessed with putting butts in movies because it would make kids giggle, and then the entire theater would laugh. So I guess what I'm saying is, Mr. Skin, would you, on Mr. Skin, please put Disney actors or actresses, have a category. There must be a category, like,
we'll call it Cartoon Poon. Cartoon Poon.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So as we're wrapping up here, I want to ask your legacy. You really have, I'm sincere when I say thank you for your service, because, you know, you created a niche where there's no competition. You know, you are the only, there is no other site that is like your site. What is your legacy? What are you leaving to the world? Your site is a vast resource, and you built it, and there's no other. And in addition to the Anatomy Awards, which we didn't get to talk about, we should talk about the Anatomy Awards before. Okay, table the legacy question. I want to talk about the Anatomy Awards.
Sure.
This past year was the Oscars, the lowest ratings.
Right.
I want to know your thoughts about that. I thought it was a disaster. I thought it was
and also it was so late in the year. Like I always we used to go on Howard in like late February, early March for like 15, 16 years, right? To do this every year. But this year, when was it? Like in late April, I can't remember. Yeah. And that's so we always piggyback. Our Anatomy Awards are when the Oscars are. So like if the Oscars are Sunday night, I'll start on the Thursday before and do we'll put it up at our website, and then I'll do tons of radio shows all over the country. It used to be Howard, but since COVID and everything else, my kind of interview isn't really happening on the show, which is totally fine. I've been on a show for 20 years and I listen every day, and I'm still friends with all the guys. But my type of interview, I'm not a whack packer, but my kind of thing, the way I do my interviews, they're doing more A-list stuff now, and totally fine. I don't mean to sound upset about it, but with the Anatomy Awards, it was weird this year to be doing it way after the NCAA tournament, for instance. It was I'd always have all my interviews done by the first or second week of March and then move on to the next thing. And this year I'm doing it at the end of April, talking about 2020's content, so it was kind of weird. It was almost like it was way farther out than I was used to. But it did, in the end, do people really care? They just want to know, who had the best nude selfie, best thong, best full frontal. They want to know that stuff. I guess what difference does it make if it's in February, March, or late April? Who cares?
And Frances McDormand, she's done nudity, right?
Okay. Well, in Nomadland, yeah. And
not that sexy in Nomadland. Let's be the bucket bathroom thing in the van. I was.
Yeah, she's. It's weird with her because we obviously reviewed the Nomadland nudity, but she's actually done. I mean, Laurel Canyon would probably be her best nudity, but that was 20 years ago or something. Even before that, she did Shortcuts in '93, Robert Altman movie where she was nude. But as good an actress as she is, and like you said, it wasn't super sexy. She's a great example of in her history, there's nudity. You might be surprised that Frances McDormand's done nudity, and she's been doing nude scenes since the early '90s, so pretty cool.
Yeah. I was leading up to a question about your legacy, but I wanted to talk about the Anatomy Awards. But what how do you feel about this legacy of what you have created? I mean, the fact that I can look up balcony and find nudity on balconies, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up, because as I've been doing this 22 years. I have kids now. My oldest is 16. I'm sorry, 17, 15, and 13, right? And it's getting to the point where, I'm I don't know how much longer I'm going to be doing this as far as being the face of the company. And I truly believe that, there's a good chance in the next year or two that, I move on. But the website will always be around, I assume. And as far as my legacy goes, I don't really think about it much. I guess what I would hope is that when you came to MrSkin.com, when I started, one of the things that I definitely wanted to do is make the website about nudity be fun, but not make you feel sleazy or dirty when you came to the website like you would if you went to a porn site. So I think my legacy might be that I made something that could have been like, a dude opening a trench coat type of thing, to you kind of felt like it was fun and you could enjoy your favorite nude scenes, but not feel like you were in a strip club or something like that. And we tried to make it fun. We tried to make you laugh, while at the same time blowing your mind with all the content and everything that we have dug up in our 22 years of doing this.
I would not put your website in the category of a porn site. It's more of a Wikipedia. It's an encyclopedic resource. It's a research tool, frankly. If
we like to call it Stickypedia. It's a listen, do we have occasional adult ads at the website? Do we have mainstream films like Brown Bunny that feature acts that are pornish? Of course. But yeah, the site is 99.9% R-rated, and it's an R-rated website. Even in the movie Knocked Up, when they bring up Mr. Skin, they go, "It's not porn," it's not, And listen, I didn't want to compete with porn when I started because I knew I'd lose. My niche is R-rated movies, nudity for movies and television. That's my niche.
Well, your legacy, Mr. Skin, is it's written in stone on a monument to the greatest minds in cinematic history. I was blown away by your documentary, which I encourage everybody to see, Skin: A History of Nudity in Movies, which is on Hulu right now. And it is, it's amazing to me, the level of detail that is in the doc. It truly is like an historical artifact and a must see. Mr. Skin, thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Chris, thanks for having me. And again, thanks for nominating our movie for your show. And I appreciate that. But I've also known about you forever, too. And I do appreciate you having me on. And it was good to catch up.
Thanks, man. Take care.
You got it.